Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper, beginning with a good news for some of you. The government does not intend to reduce the age limit for writing the civil services examination. What is the context? Niti Aayog in its report had recommended that the age limit for writing the civil services examination should be reduced to 26 years. Now the government has made it abundantly clear that they do not intend to reduce the age limit. So all these speculations have been laid to rest. So you should not be paying any heed to these rumors. Focus on your preparation and let's look at a news item on page number 1 of the Delhi edition of the Hindu relevant for your GS paper 2 and 3. The government has released a draft. What is this draft called? Information Technology Intermediaries Guidelines Amendment Rules 2018. This draft is in public domain. The government is asking the larger public to give their recommendations about this draft. And what is this draft? This draft contains some proposals. And once these proposals are accepted, these proposals will become the rules. And through these rules, the government intends to curb unlawful content on social networking sites. How? One way in which the government intends to curb unlawful content on the social networking sites is that these intermediaries, such as Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, they should inform the government about who is the originator of this unlawful content. This unlawful content might be child pornographic video, might be an inflammatory message, might be a mischievous fake news. And this fake news must be curbed so that there is peace, law and order and security in the society. And if the originator of this unlawful content is made known to the government, then an FIR can be filed against this individual and we can effectively curb the menace of fake and mischievous news in this country. But opposition alleges that through this rule, the government is intending to keep the entire population in this country under surveillance. But this newspaper article tells us that this draft rule is nothing but the reflection of the very Supreme Court orders. That means all these rules that have been mentioned in this draft, they are nothing but what the Supreme Court asked the government to do. For example, Supreme Court asked in July that it shall be the duty of the central government as well as the state governments to take various steps, and through these steps the government should curb and stop the dissemination of irresponsible and explosive messages. That is why the draft says that these social media intermediaries such as Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, they should provide information to any government agency whenever government agency wants such an information. For example, this information can be who is the originator of this unlawful content. Second, in December, the Supreme Court asked the government that you should frame various guidelines or standard operating procedure SOP, and within 2 weeks this SOP should be implemented so that we can eliminate child pornography, rape and gang rape videos and inflammatory content. That is why the draft says that all these intermediaries, whenever we ask them, within 24 hours they should take down this unlawful content. Similarly, the draft says that there should be a point of contact, a POC. There should be a POC appointed by these intermediaries so that the government can get in touch with this point of contact and this unlawful content can be removed from these websites within 24 hours. Otherwise, this content may cause mayhem and chaos in the society. So what this newspaper article basically is telling us that these draft rules released by the government, they are nothing but the echo of various Supreme Court orders. That is what you need to understand from this newspaper article. Now let's look at another news article on page number 7 of the Delhi edition of the Hindu. A study was conducted. This study tells us that every year 30 million newborns, they require hospitalization. And in absence of this hospital care, they may either die or they may develop some health conditions or disabilities that are going to affect them for their entire lives. But from the civil services examination point of view, we need some factual information. Number one, what is this study called? This study is called Survive and Thrive, Transforming Care for Every Small and Sick Newborn. But who has released this survey? UNICEF and World Health Organization. That is why it becomes very important for your examination, because in prelims examination, often these reports are asked and you are asked to identify who has released such a report. That's number one. Number two, there was an initial survey conducted by UNICEF and it tells us that in India, out of every 1000 births, 25.4 children they die. This is something that we call neonatal deaths. But Sustainable Development Goal tells us that this neonatal death in all countries should be brought down to 12 deaths or 12 or less deaths per 1000 births. And this every country shall have to implement by the year 2030. That is what you need to understand from this newspaper article. Let's look at another news. Koregaon Battle Anniversary on January 1. What is this Koregaon Battle Anniversary? This battle at Koregaon was fought on 1st January 1818. What happened on this date? East India Company fought against the Peshwas. Majority of the soldiers of East India Company, they came from a community called Mahars. And these Mahars were treated as untouchables at that point in time. And who were these Peshwas? Basically Brahmins, basically upper caste. And these Brahmins had victimized these Mahars for centuries altogether. And in this battle at Koregaon, East India Company defeated the Peshwas, or should we say untouchables defeated the upper caste. And every year this battle of Koregaon, this victory at the battle of Koregaon is celebrated by the Mahars, by the so-called untouchable community in Pune. But last year we saw massive violence at the celebration of this Koregaon battle anniversary. Buses were burned, public property was burned, and now what the government has planned in such a manner that these violent clashes do not recur. That means tight security has been put in place for Koregaon battle anniversary on January 1. This is the background that you need to know from this newspaper article. Beyond these few newspaper articles, there is nothing relevant from today's newspaper. But let's look at some of the editorials and columns from today's newspaper, beginning with Chabahar Tidings. Now let's understand this newspaper editorial. This is India, this is Afghanistan, Central Asia. India wants access to Afghanistan, India wants access to Central Asia. But the path to Afghanistan and Central Asia lies through Pakistan. And Pakistan has historically and repeatedly denied India direct access to Afghanistan and Central Asia, because Pakistan does not want Afghanistan to come under the influence of India. So what is the alternative? Iran. In Iran, we have a port city called Chabahar. There are two ports there. One such port, Shahid Behishti Port, is developed by India. Massive investments have been made by India on this Chabahar port. So India basically wants to use this Chabahar port for access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. So an uninterruptible access can be given to India to Afghanistan and Central Asia because of this Chabahar port. And now what has happened? A historic thing has happened. This Chabahar port will now be operationalized. India has taken over the operations of this port for 18 months. And this is a historic step in India's diplomacy in the West Asia and Middle East. But there are some concerns. What are the concerns? Concern number one is CAATSA. What is CAATSA? Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. This is the law in United States where the President of United States can impose sanctions against any country or any entity if it conducts transactions of significant nature with Iran, North Korea, and Russia. Since India has invested heavily in Iran's Chabahar port, many thought that India will also be imposed sanctions by the United States under CAATSA. But India got a waiver. That means no sanctions will be imposed on India. That means India's investments in Chabahar port will not come under the US sanctions. But many people believe that this waiver is temporary. We have a president of United States, Donald Trump, who is very unpredictable. So if today waiver has been given to India, tomorrow this waiver can be snatched, and even on Chabahar port sanctions can be imposed. That's one problem. Second problem is United States has decided to pull out its troops from Syria, and United States also in all likelihood will exit Afghanistan. So when United States will exit Afghanistan, then Pakistan will have an open field in Afghanistan, and Pakistan will try to use Taliban, Pakistan will try to use terrorist and extremist elements in Afghanistan to attack this Chabahar port. So the security of this Chabahar port is also a serious concern, because previously, few weeks ago, we did see an attack was carried out in Chabahar city. That's another concern. But then we have one more concern, and that is the Chinese concern. China, we know, is involved in string of pearls around India. So China has invested heavily in the construction of ports in Myanmar, in Chittagong port in Bangladesh, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, Gwadar port in Karachi. And to tell you, this Gwadar port in Karachi is close to 110 kilometers away from Chabahar port. So it is in this context that this development in the Chabahar port, where India has taken over the operations of a Shahid Behishti port at Chabahar, is of significant value to India's diplomacy. That is why India has to treat cautiously on this front. That's the thing that you need to understand from this newspaper editorial. There is another column on a shaky foundation. What is the context? The context is that Ministry of Home Affairs issued a notification. This notification authorized 10 central agencies. What these 10 central agencies can do? These 10 central agencies can intercept, monitor, decrypt any information which is either transmitted or received or even stored in any computer. So basically all computers are under the government watch. This notification of the MHA has been criticized by civil society activists, by the opposition. They allege that the government has ordered a mass surveillance against its citizens. They allege that through this notification, India has been turned into an Orwellian state. But in yesterday's newspaper analysis, the first article that we discussed, a case for surveillance, it contains everything that you need to know regarding this Section 69 of the Information Technology Act, which has authorized these central agencies to intercept, monitor, and decrypt every information available on the computers. So if you have understood that newspaper column that we discussed yesterday, there is no need for you to read this newspaper column. So please go through that news analysis once again if you have not understood it. Now let's look at another column on page number 8 of the Delhi edition of the Hindu, Elections in an Embattled Democracy. It talks about the elections that are scheduled to take place in Bangladesh on December 30, 2018. In 2008, when Sheikh Hasina, the head of Awami League, when she won the election, she had promised to uproot every anti-India terror module in Bangladesh. She had promised to help that militancy and insurgency in India's northeast will be eradicated. And she stood by her promise, and today the brightest spot in India's diplomacy is Bangladesh. There was a newspaper report which said that top-ranking intelligence officials in India, they agree that without Sheikh Hasina-led Awami League government in Bangladesh, it would have been impossible to check militancy and terrorism in northeast. And she has dismantled all known Pakistani assets in Bangladesh. It was during the tenure of Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister that significant deals and negotiations were signed by India and Bangladesh. It was during her prime ministership that transshipment of goods using river ports, roads, many bus and train routes were operationalized between India and Bangladesh. A bus service from Kolkata, which passes through Bangladesh and then enters into India's northeastern region, was started during the prime ministership of Sheikh Hasina. Land boundary agreement, which was pending since 1970s between India and Bangladesh, that was signed during the prime ministership of Sheikh Hasina. Except Teesta River Water Sharing Agreement, which is still a stumbling block between India and Bangladesh because West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee does not want this river sharing agreement between India and Bangladesh. Except this, we have seen significant improvements in the relationship between India and Bangladesh. In fact, India's private investment in Bangladesh today stands at $10 billion. India has already extended a $7.5 billion line of credit for various infrastructural projects in Bangladesh. And now there are elections in Bangladesh, and everybody in India wants that Sheikh Hasina should come back to power because it was during the prime ministership of Sheikh Hasina that India and Bangladesh became very close to each other. But now we have a surprise, and surprise in the form of Kamal Hussain. Who is Kamal Hussain? The founder of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he tasked Kamal Hussain to frame the constitution for Bangladesh. He was a minister under Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is the father of Sheikh Hasina, the current Prime Minister of Bangladesh. But then the relationship deteriorated between Kamal Hussain and Sheikh Hasina, and he left the party. He started another political party, and his political party has never won a single seat in Bangladeshi parliament. But that's not the concern here. Kamal Hussain, who is very secular, he has joined hands with Bangladeshi Nationalist Party headed by Begum Khaleda Zia, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. But Begum Khaleda Zia has links with Jamaat-e Islami of Bangladesh. Jamaat-e Islami Bangladesh has links with Jamaat-e Islami of Pakistan. And ultimately, Khaleda Zia has links with terrorist elements in Bangladesh, has links with Islamist and extremist elements in Bangladesh, and a secular Kamal Hussain forming a coalition with radical elements. It does not augur well with India. That is why India wants Sheikh Hasina to win these elections. Although Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh has been de-recognized, they cannot contest elections in Bangladesh. But some of the office bearers, at least 25 office bearers of Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, they are contesting elections on the ticket of Bangladeshi Nationalist Party. That is why this coalition is a worrying factor for India, and that is why India wants Sheikh Hasina to win these elections so that the relationship between the two countries can be further strengthened. That is something that you need to understand from this newspaper article. Beyond this, you need not to read this article. When the elections in Bangladesh are over, then we will have an elaborate discussion of what these elections and these results mean for India. Now let us look at some of the prelims based questions from today's paper. Which of the following statements are correct? HIV is a virus that targets and alters the respiratory system. It's wrong. It alters the nervous system. HIV infection always leads to AIDS. Not necessarily. Blood transfusion is one big cause of HIV infection. Yes. Only 3D is the correct answer. Because if you look at today's page number 1 of the Delhi edition of the Hindu, because of blood transfusion, one woman in Tamil Nadu was infected with HIV. Let's look at a map-based question. Match the following, or which of the following are correctly matched? Nazca Plate, western coast of South America, yes. Cocos Plate, oceanic tectonic plate including path of Central America and Caribbean Sea, no. Juan de Fuca Plate, a small tectonic plate in western North America, yes. Scotia Plate, it is north of The Australian plate, no. So 1 and C are correct. 1 and 3 are correct. C is the correct answer. This is the explanation to it. Nazca plate, Cocos plate, Juan de Fuca plate, and Scotia plate. Previous year's prelims based question 2016 Mission Indradhanush launched by the Government of India pertains to immunization of children and pregnant women. Why are we discussing previous year's prelims based question? It is not that these questions will be repeated by the UPSC. UPSC seldom repeats its old questions. But this will give you a fair idea about what sort of questions are asked by the UPSC so that you can better prepare for this exam. So far as today's mains based question is concerned, there is an assignment for you. On our website, freeiasprep.byju's.com, there is one section called answer writing. Our students, whenever we pose questions to them, they write answers by taking a snap of their answers and they send to us. And then we will evaluate these answers within 3 days. And the best solutions or the best answers that we have got from our students, we upload them under this answer writing section on our website. So the assignment for you today is to go through these model answers so that you can better understand how to frame good answers for your mains examination. That is it from now from our newspaper analysis section. Thank you for being with us. Have a great day.